let me introduce to you guys Mary Madden.
Thank you, Hamza, and thanks to the League for inviting me to be here today. I, of course, am not someone who works in the bike industry or in bike advocacy, but I am part of the extended family because my husband is Bill Nesper, who's Vice President of Programs for the League. So that's my claim to fame and how I got here today. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Pew Internet Project, we are one of 7 research projects housed within the Pew Research Center here in Washington, D.C. We have a grant at the Internet Project specifically to study people's use and social impact of the Internet and digital technologies in their lives. And one thing that's important about the work that we do is that we're nonpartisan, we're impartial, all of our research is available for free. So I'll give you some data nuggets to kind of chew on today. But the full buffet is available on our website. I'm going to kind of gloss over a lot of things. At the end of my slides, there are links to full reports, and so we'll have the slides posted on our site if you'd like to explore further. So first, I'm just going to talk about the basic landscape of social media today, and these findings come from a recent report we released on social media, and just lay the groundwork for who uses what. If you're going to use these tools to reach certain groups, you need to know who's using them, who isn't. One tool might be better than another in a certain instance. So looking just generally, we find that at the moment 3 in 4 adults are internet users, and 67% of them say that they use a social networking site. That represents more than half of the entire adult population in the US. Young people, of course, are still the heaviest users of social media. They were the earliest adopters, and they continue to be the heaviest users. And Facebook is still the dominant platform for them. But we're starting to see that other sites are attracting different demographic groups, and so you may want to keep that in mind as you're considering reaching out to certain groups, like women, for instance. So looking a little more closely at just this general question we ask about social networking use, I want to point out that just the big difference between young adults and the oldest users. So for instance, 83% of adults ages 18 to 29 use social networking sites, while just 32% of those ages 65 and older use them. However, there have been great gains in social media usage by older adults ages 50 and older in recent years. Some people talk about that as the graying of social media. And so then there are effects where younger people then feel like they need to find new spaces to hang out, of course. So we see that particularly with our work looking at teenagers. They don't like it when their parents start using the same tools they're using. Looking at Twitter more closely, we see that at this time 16% of internet users are on Twitter. And so even though Facebook and Twitter are often used in the same sentence to talk about, as a shorthand way to talk about social media, there's a huge difference between, the percentage of people that are on Facebook versus Twitter. 4 times as many people use Facebook as do Twitter. And again, this is adults. Still, Twitter use has doubled since November 2010, and it continues to grow. And again, we're seeing even with younger users under age 18 that Twitter use is continuing to grow. One thing I want to point out here is that, and this is quite unique, African Americans are more likely than whites to use Twitter. This goes against many trends in technology adoption, and is something that we've seen consistently over time. Looking at Pinterest, Hamza mentioned that the League is going to have a Pinterest account soon. For those of you who aren't familiar with the site, it's basically a bulletin board, online bulletin board. It's a very visual platform. It's a way to share and reshare content. So you might hear people talking about sort of this concept of microblogging. It makes it very easy to share the things you like and sort of archive them in a space. The really striking thing about Pinterest here is that women are 5 times more likely than men to use the site. This is a site that really initially grew out of Midwestern moms sharing recipes and ideas for crafts and things to do with their kids, and then it's grown from there. But really, it has continued to be a site where women really do dominate. Looking at Instagram is also relatively new. Of course, Facebook recently bought Instagram, so it will be interesting to see how it changes. But Instagram is an app based around photo sharing. And at this point, it really is a typical early adopter profile, with the exception of the fact that African Americans and Hispanics are also more likely than whites to use Instagram. So for instance, 23% of African Americans who are internet users use Instagram, and 18% of Hispanics do versus 11% of white adults. Also, just you're probably seeing some similarities across here in terms of urban adults being more likely to use many of these tools when compared with people living in rural areas. Tumblr is another tool that is very visual in nature. I think of Tumblr like a meta social media site. It can be a way to link across lots of different social media content. At the Pew Internet Project, we use Tumblr to blog about press articles. We use it to link to photos and videos, and sometimes archiving other conversations that might happen on Facebook. And at this point, really we're very early in the adoption curve. The only thing we see standing out is that young adults are the most likely group to use Tumblr. And so again, that just stands in contrast to the fact that 67% of adults are on Facebook. So really this continues to be the dominant platform, but we do see that there's considerable fluidity in this population, right? It's not a clear increase in adoption. You have some people that are falling off, some people that are taking breaks for a time, and so we wanted to look at that more closely. So the second section of findings comes from a report we released recently looking at this concept of Facebook fatigue. We wanted to understand more about the people who were feeling overwhelmed by the content on the site, people who felt like they weren't using it as often, or those that felt like it wasn't as important in their lives as it has been in the past. But also we asked questions about, is Facebook growing in importance for you? So looking at the concept of sort of Facebook fasting, we find that 61% of current Facebook users say that at one time or another in the past, they've voluntarily taken a break from using Facebook for a period of several weeks or more. Looking at online adults who don't currently use Facebook, we find that 20% are Facebook dropouts. So they once used the site, but they no longer do so. And then in that same group who do not currently use Facebook, 8% say that they're interested in becoming Facebook users in the future. So really, we're at a pretty saturated point in Facebook usage. Another interesting question in this study was an open-ended question that asked people who had taken a break what their reasons for doing so were. And this was an open-ended question, which I love these because we get just insane responses from people. And then we have to, basically code all of them into these different categories. Far and away, most people said, they're too busy, they didn't have time for Facebook, or, it was an issue related to the relevancy of the content. They just didn't like it, they thought it was a waste of time. What was most surprising to me, though, was that all the concerns related to privacy, security, advertising, or spam, even when you lump them all together, that only accounted for 4% of the reasons people offered. So really, by and large, it's just people feeling like they don't have time to keep up with it. Looking at questions around the importance of Facebook to people, we found that 59% of Facebook users said the site is about as important to them as it was a year ago. And 53% say that the amount of time they spend on Facebook is about the same as last year. However, 28% said that the site has been less important to them than it was a year ago, and 34% say the amount of time they spend on the site has decreased over the past year. And then just 12% say the site has become more important, I have 1 minute, than it was a year ago, and 13% say the amount of time they spend on Facebook has increased. So just looking quickly at some of the demographic trends there, women were more likely than men to report increased importance and time spent on Facebook, and largely the people who were reporting decreased time spent on the site were younger users. Looking ahead to the coming year, just 3% of Facebook users say they plan to spend more time on the site. 27% say they plan to spend less time on the site, and 69% say they plan to spend about the same amount of time on the site. Again, young people are the most likely to say that time spent on Facebook will decrease for them. So, what are we supposed to do with all that information? Well, we can look, on the one hand at individual use of social media, and we can talk about organizational use of social media, and I think my fellow panelists will talk about that a bit more. I just want to briefly touch on, sorry, I'll go back here, some data that we have from a new report looking at arts organizations' use of social media, which I think there's a lot of relevancy here just to any kind of organization. And I wanted to just point out, this was an open-ended question where we asked about the tools that arts organizations use. And what's interesting to me here is this was an open-ended question, and you see the wide array of tools that people are using. You also see surprising sites that people consider to be social media, like Wikipedia or Yelp. And so the way you think about what a social media tool can be, I think can be quite creative. Basically any tool that can be used to connect you with people and share your resources online. Also, organizations are using multiple platforms, right? They're not putting all of their investment in Facebook or all of their investment in Twitter. Arts organizations, on average, use at least 4 different social media sites. And they're using it for a wide array of purposes, engaging their audience around an event, monitoring what people are saying about their organization, also learning more about their audience, right? This is like free audience research. And getting feedback from the public and crowdsourcing ideas. So that's very much what we do at the Pew Internet Project. These are some of the tools that we use. We use these tools to solicit research ideas, to share our findings and connect with our audience. And I think my fellow panelists are going to talk about how this could be used in the bike world. So.